Imagine the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany, a war hero of the First World War, a man he trusted, Hitler more than anyone, others, and yet he ended up bloated, drug-addicted traitor, in a prison cell on his. Execution awaited. This is the story of Hermann Goring, a man who had everything and everything lost. A man, he went from a hero to a monster. A man whose greed for power is only from his addiction. It was surpassed by drugs. Today we reveal the terrifying truth about Hitler's closest confidants. A story of loyalty and betrayal, of fame and shame, from a man who thought he was immortal until reality caught up with him. Welcome to the dark history of Hermann Goring. Hermann Wilhelm Göring was born on December 12th. He was born in Rosenheim, Bavaria, in January 1893. His early years were marked by privileges and military tradition. His father was a high-ranking colonial officer. His family belonged to the German elite. When the First World War broke out in 1914, young Göring immediately reported voluntary. He first served in the infantry, but his ambition drove him higher, literally. He joined the Air Force and became fighter pilot. And this is where his legend began. Göring was an exceptional pilot, fearless, skillful, deadly. He shot 22 enemy aircraft from he became one of the most famous Fliegerrace Deutschlands. 1918, after the death of the legendary Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, Göring took command of the famous fighter squadron I. He was awarded the Pour le Mérite, the highest military order of the empire. He was a hero, a national symbol, a man. The whole of Germany admired him. But then came defeat. The Stranders treaty humiliated Germany. The Air Force was disbanded. And Göring, the proud war hero, he found himself in a world that no more needed. This humiliation would forever emboss, and she would put him right into the arms of one man's goings-on, who promised Germany make it great again, Adolf Hitler. In 1922, Hermann Göring met for the first time Adolf Hitler. He heard him at a rally, Munich, and was immediately fascinated. Hitler spoke of revenge, of national rebirth, the restoration of German greatness. For Göring it was as if he finally had a purpose again found. He joined the NSDAP and quickly became a key figure. Hitler immediately recognized Göring's worth. A decorated war hero gave the party legitimacy. Göring became commander of the SA, appointed Hitler's paramilitary thugs. In 1923, Göring failed. Hitler putsch in Munich. When the police opened fire, Göring shot in the groin. The injury was severe. He fled to Austria, where he was treated in the hospital. This is where the dark side begins. History. To alleviate the unbearable pain, the doctors gave him morphine, lots of morphine, and Göring, the strong warrior, became addicted. The addiction would never let him go. After Hitler came to power in 1933, Göring is comet-like. He collected offices like other people's stamps: Prussian, Prime Minister, Reich Aviation Minister, Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, Reichsmarshal. He was Hitler's successor, the second most powerful man in the empire, but with power came decadence. Göring lived like a Roman emperor. He built huge estates. His residence, Hall, north of Berlin, was a monumental palace, filled with stolen art from all over Europe. He wore a uniform that he wore, designed often in absurd colors and with ridiculous lots of medals. His vanity became legendary. His addiction got worse. And slowly his star began to fall. In the early years of World War II, the Luftwaffe Göring was proud. The blitzkriegs against Poland, Norway, and France was a spectacular success. Göring boasted that his air force is invincible. But then came the Battle of Britain in 1940. Göring promised Hitler that he with the air force will be destroyed within weeks. He swore that German bombers never hit the British would reach the ground. Call me Meyer if only one enemy aircraft German territory achieved. He boasted. The British soon actually called him Meyer. The Battle of Britain became catastrophe. The Air Force lost thousands of aircraft and pilots. Hitler was furious. Göring's reputation was destroyed. From that moment, Hitler trusted him never again completely. But Göring's biggest mistake was still before Stalingrad. In 1942, the Soviet army closed the Sixth Army in Stalingrad. Hitler refused a retreat. Command, the only hope, was an airlift, a massive supply operation. The trapped troops alive should hold. Göring, desperate to win back Hitler's favor, he promised the impossible. My Führer, the Air Force will supply the army. It was a lie, a monumental, murderous lie. The Air Force could never get enough to deliver supplies. The weather conditions were brutal. The Soviet air defense was deadly. Thousands of German soldiers starved to death or frozen to death in Stalingrad, while Göring sat in his palaces, morphine and past victories dreamed. Then the Sixth, and in February 1943, over 90,000 Germans surrendered, soldiers dead, and Hitler's trust in Göring was definitely broken. From then on, Göring was just a shadow himself. He increasingly withdrew, spent time in his residences, collecting stolen works of art, and immersed himself in his drug addiction. Other Nazis like Himmler and Goebbels take over more power. Göring became an embarrassment. In April 1945, Nazi Germany was at an end. The Soviets stood in front of Berlin. Hitler was in his bunker, entrenched. The Allies advanced from all sides. Göring was at that time in Berchtesgaden, far from the collapsing capital. And here he made the mistake that ruined everything would end. On the 23rd in April, Göring received the news that Hitler may have been captured or was isolated. As an official successor, Göring believed it is his duty to take the lead. He sent a telegram to Hitler. To my Führer, since you have decided to stay in Berlin, are you ready to give me the overall leadership of the transfer of wealth? For Göring, it was a logical question. He was the designated successor. Hitler seemed incapable of action. It was time, take control, and maybe peace negotiations with the Allies began. For Hitler, it was treason. Hitler, influenced by Martin Bormann, who Göring hated, exploded with rage. He was convinced that Göring had tried to overthrow him. With a trembling hand, Hitler signed a command. Göring removed from all offices, excluded from the party, placed under house arrest. Nothing has been spared. Shall Hitler said, no treachery, no crime. Göring, the man who Hitler 22 years he had long served, one of his earliest and most faithful had fallen into disgrace. And he knew it. In his last days as a free man, Göring broken, not just physically, through drugs, but also through mental Hitler's rejection. On the 9th, May 1945, one day after the German surrender, Hermann Goring surrendered. American troops in Austria. He wore one of his pompous uniforms and expected, treated as a high dignitary to become. Instead, he became a war criminal, arrested. Americans were shocked by his condition. Goring weighed over 130 kilograms, was bloated and obviously addicted to drugs. He had a suitcase full of morphine and paracodeine tablets with you. His addiction was so hard that he several times a day took cans. That would kill a normal person. Goring was imprisoned in the United States, forced to take a cold withdrawal pass-through. Yes, was agonizing. He had seizures, hallucinations, desperate pain. But slowly, over weeks and months, his mind cleared. The man who showed up was dangerously clever. During the Nuremberg Trials, Goring, the highest-ranking Nazi leader on the dock, Hitler, Himmler, and Goebbels were dead. Goring was the face of the Nazis regime, and he played his part masterfully. Goring defended himself brilliantly. He was quick-witted, intelligent, challenging. He refused it from apologizing. He insisted he only served his country. He showed no remorse for the Holocaust, for the millions off dead, for the destruction of Europe. Too did what I thought was right for my people. He told the court. The accusation was overwhelming. Crimes against peace, war crimes, crimes against humanity. Goring had concentration camps set up in the Holocaust, works of art on an unimaginable scale robbed. On the first, the verdict was announced in October 1946. Guilty on all charges. Death penalty by hanging. Goring showed no emotion, but inside he was horrified. Hanging was for him the ultimate humiliation. He saw himself as a soldier and thought he deserved a soldier. Death by shooting, not the shame of Galgens. On the October 15th, 1946, just 2 hours before his planned execution, something happened. Unexpected. Hermann Goring committed suicide. He had managed to get a cyanide capsule to hide. To this day, it is unclear. How? Some say a guard was bribed. Others believe he had it all along. Hidden. Others believe that he was a sympathizer smuggled. Goring except for the capsule. Within minutes, he was dead. He left a letter in his last act of rebellion explained. I wanted to do not die by the hand of an executioner. I wanted to decide for myself when and how I'm dying. Even in death, he refused the Allies their complete triumph. He had the last. GI, the next morning there were 10 more. Nazi leaders hanged. Goring's body was found. The other was burned, and the ashes were scattered into an unknown river. None grave, no monument, nothing that future Nazis might adore. Hermann Goring was many things. War hero, a powerful Nazi leader, one art driver, a drug addict, a traitor. And in the end, a coward whose justice was taken away by suicide. His story is a whamming, dangers of power, without morality, of ambition, without conscience, of loyalty to a monster. He began as a hero and ended as criminals. And between these 2 points lay a life full of decadence, searches, betrayal, and unimaginable cruelty. If you find this video important historical has given insights, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more documentation about them, the darkest figures of the Second World War. And remember, knowing history means to lean from her. Hermann Goring should not be forgotten as warning.